call that the retainer gap. And the retainer gap is the distance between a prospect agreeing with you intellectually and feeling safe enough to commit operationally. I mean, you can have a great consult and still lose the signature if the prospect experiences what I would call uncertainty at the exact points where they're trying to make a decision. And the retainer gap, well, it shows up as silence, delays, even requests for more time, and of course, the classic line, which I'm sure you have heard over and over again, let me think about it. Yikes. Now, let me make this concrete with operational details because this is not a theory that I have. In a typical law firm, the sequence looks like this. Intake triage books the consult quickly, sometimes with incomplete notes because the phones are busy or they just didn't do a great job. And a conflict check is run, but it's rushed, or it's done after the consult is booked, so the firm is already committed to a time slot. The consult happens, and you think it goes well. Then the retainer is sent, and sometimes with a generic scope paragraph, sometimes with a fee structure that is explained verbally, but it's not reinforced in writing. Follow-up tends to be inconsistent because you assume the intake team is handling it, or the intake team assumes that you're handling it. So what happens is, like a week later, you have a retainer sent versus a retainer signed gap that no one can really explain without what I would say is guessing, which is not a good place to be. The hidden layer is that prospects do not experience your firm as one person. They experience it as a system. They notice when the intake person sounds different than the lawyer. They notice when the consult is confident, but the retainer email feels like a template and sort of cold. And of course, they're going to notice when you say something like, we'll get it to you by the end of the day, and it arrives 2 days later. They notice when they ask a question about timing and the answer is vague. Of course they do. And none of that means that you're doing bad work. It just means that the decision environment feels unstable to the PNC, and that's not a good place to be. The retainer gap is often created by small inconsistencies that you've trained yourself to ignore because you're focused on legal substance. Prospects are not evaluating legal substance, not at all. They're evaluating risk. So a prospect, they're asking themselves, will this attorney take control of a stressful situation without causing me any more stress or any new stress? And there are a few friction points that create the retainer gap, even when your consults are strong. Let's dive into those for a moment here. So first, the consult scheduling and consult show rate issues are often a signal, not a problem. If your consult calendar is packed, but your show rate is soft, that is frequently because the pre-consult confirmation is informational instead of stabilizing. So a reminder that repeats date and times is not the same as a message that reduces uncertainty. When people no-show, the instinct is to blame lead quality. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it is lead quality, but sometimes it's that the firm didn't earn the right to that hour by making the next step feel safe for the potential new client and the prospect. Second, the consult to client conversion problem is often a scope clarity problem disguised as a pricing problem. Lawyers, I know you hear things like, your fee is too high. And what a prospect means is, I don't know what I'm buying. I don't know how decisions are going to be made. And what happens if this goes sideways? Because if the consult is heavy on analysis and light on decision structure, the prospect leaves with information but not a path. And when that happens, that's just going to widen the retainer gap.